Wowee, what a wriggle diggle. I just flipped my switch on Chi-Chi the telly to the neck pickup and dead air. It's time to give Mr. Fralin a call.
Robbery? I don't think that one's in the Webster's.
Hey, greetings. Welcome to 2 Blues Licks in 5 Minutes, episode, I think, 17. The last time around, we covered the equator, as John Mayer called it, this Middle Earth axis here, as we call it, that is a common ground between Form 5 and Form 1 in G minor pentatonic right here on this 3rd fret. These notes here along the 3rd fret are shared between position 5 and position 1. If you take a quick look at both of those forms, here's Form 1. All of those notes here on my index finger that I played here on the 3rd fret are shared for the most part if we play it in this with these fingerings with my ring finger if I'm doing position 5. So that is an easy way around if you're playing in any key. Find that Middle Earth position right here in your roots, of course. If you're playing in G, it's here, because you've got a root and a root. If you're playing in B minor, you've got that axis right here. And the form 5 for B minor is right here, okay? And that simplifies a lot. So we were talking before, and what we're really talking about here is how to connect all these dots. So that's a big connection right there. You're connecting 2 forms, and that helps a lot. So that's review from previous episodes. Now let's take a great leap forward. Form 2, not one of my favorites. Well, it's got that B.B. King box or Freddie King box. Or is it Albert King?
You think you could be a little more Pacific? Maybe specific?
The box. We've got Form 1 here, G pentatonic. The box is right here. And we've talked about that in previous episodes also. Looks like a house. It's the House of Blues, it's called.
The wind whistling through the trees. Maybe sitting in a gazebo.
I think this is Albert, and I think up here is BB. And I think BB's box throws in a couple of extra notes. I've looked it up on the internet, gurgled it, and I've seen all different kinds of shapes and different names for these boxes. In any case, this one at the top, the high strings of Form 2 is right here. And I'll try to put a graphic up on the screen somewhere over here maybe. That right there is 5 notes of our G minor pentatonic in position 2. So how do we find that? Well, aside from memorizing it, okay, it's right here. If we're playing G minor, it's on the 7th fret. Well, we know this D shape. D, E, F, chord shape that is. G, A, B, C, and D. Here on the 7th fret is a G chord. If we bring that 3rd down 1/2 step, we've got a G minor chord. And that is 3 notes right there of that King box, that House of Blues. So all we're really doing is adding a couple of notes. Okay, so, and other ways to find this, that's the chord. So if you're playing in G minor, you've got a G chord right here, make it minor, and your House of Blues is right there. Another way is this, if you're off of the B string here, that is a G note. And that is within,
Spectacular.
So this root, G, if we're playing in G minor pentatonic, this G note is the third note of our House of Blues box right here. And that's where our G chord is. So that if you know your notes, you're obviously going to have an advantage here. If you know the notes on a B string, this is a D. Okay. There's a D chord. Your box is right here if you're playing in D minor. If you're playing in C, your box is right here. If you're playing in C minor.
Chicken neck.
So there's a few different methods to find form 2 notes on this E, B, and G string. So we've covered those 3 strings. And though those couple of methods are, find this D-shaped chord. If we're playing in G, here's a G chord, G minor, and that's where your House of Blues is. Another way, you can find the root if you know the notes. Or again, if you're playing a D chord here, or I mean a G chord in a D shape, you've got a G note right here. That gives you a location, and then you can quickly come up with the notes because you know that location, you know where you're at. And that's the important thing here. Know where you're at. Lost in space. Based on what things look like, as far as the frets go, your location, what things look like as far as where the chords are, that would be 2. So you can look at things and know where you're at. You can find the chords and know where you're at. You can find the scales and know where you're at. You know, the intervals. Speaking of intervals, for our next 2 notes, our D string and our A string, we've got form 1, and we've got these 2 notes out of our G minor form 1, which are shared in form 2. And one thing to note here, well, it's again, I was going to call it a rule, but it is our scale. It relates right back to your minor scale, your minor pentatonic scale. As far as the intervals go, the root D, or G, the root G, right here. Anytime we have a G in G minor pentatonic, we go a whole step plus a half step, the big stretch. So there's our form 1 note that is shared with form 2, and our new form 2 note is right there, a B flat. All the time, anytime you got a G in G minor, it goes up to a B flat. Okay, so a G here, up to a B flat. A G here, whoops, that's an A. A G here, up to a B flat. A G here, up to a B flat. A G here, up to a B flat. And those are all in other different forms. So we're just, that interval rule, if you call it that, that applies to all of the forms, okay? So that covers the D string in G minor pentatonic. Now this A string, that's a D note from form 1. D is what in relation to G minor? It is the fifth. Anytime you've got a anytime you're playing in a key, G minor in this case, excuse me, go to the fifth, that too gets a big stretch. That D goes up to an F. And guess what? That rule applies to all of the forms. D up to an F. D up to an F. D up to an F. How about this D? Up to an F. Yeah, baby. So now we have covered we've covered 5 strings of form 2. So we've got those 5 strings. Now, this big E string, the low E string. We've got a G here in form 1 up to a B flat. Remember, G to B flat, we talked about that big stretch before. Anywhere on the neck when you're in G minor pentatonic. So that brings us up to B flat, and, well, we go to a C here. Okay? Just a simple, in G minor pentatonic, anytime we're at a B flat, we go up to a C whole step. Okay, so that brings us to the full form. Down to that G, form 1G. Okay, now the band that I'm playing in is learning Octopus's Garden, and I play the George Harrison intro lead guitar parts and the lead solo in the middle. And that solo for the most part is, and the introduction are right out of form 1 and form 2. So it's a good exercise. If you do learn that, you can see how they can connect, those 2 forms can connect to each other easily. Well, it's a tricky little bit. And there's a few boxes here, whole step boxes that I'll show you here that help you see the connection between form 1 and form 2. Right here in form 1, there's that box right there of 6 different notes. And you can slide right up to that blues box. So if you put those together, if you practice those 2 boxes, your connection between form 1 and form 2 will become more fluid. That's basically the middle chunks. Well, it's the middle chunk of form 1 and the top blues box in form 2. And you can flow between those 2 rather seamlessly if you do rehearse that a lot. And there's a lot of licks contained there. Sounds almost... So in summary here, learn all 5 forms. We've gone over 5, 1, and 2. Learn the forms, see those shapes in your mind, but when you're playing, if you're playing a solo, don't always revert to, oh gosh, I'm in G minor, I've got to go right to form 1. You don't always have to think like that. With everything that we're compiling on top here, with these other connecting the dots bullet items, where we're putting this big ball of wax together, and it'll help you think outside of the shapes. I was going to say outside of the box, but well, outside of that Form 1 box, okay? So if we are in G minor, like we've talked about in these past couple of episodes, if you are in G minor, think, okay, G minor, G's my root. You've got that access here. Oh, that gives me all these notes. I know the two forms, but I'm really thinking about it in terms of this axis, this equator here. So I don't have to go to Form 1. I could play a solo right here. Using notes just from the 3rd fret. And I've got my waypoint here. It just helps me to know where to go, using information that is in addition to just the forms themselves. Think outside of the box. Alrighty, so I hope that helps you connect so far Form 5 to Form 1 to Form 2 with that Middle Earth equator and the blues box, your interval notes. I keep repeating myself. I repeat myself when I'm in distress. 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 In addition to the forms, the equator, the chords, the chord shapes, the intervals and scales, I'd also add use your ears, man. Use your ears. 5 minutes and 50 takes.